welcome back to Q&A with S&A. I'm Andrea.
And I'm Shane.
And today we are really pleased to have one of our interstate guests, which is really exciting. I wasn't expecting Mel to be in the studio with us today, but she is. Leadership and communication strategist, best-selling author and business consultant, Mel Kettle.
Thanks so much for having me. It's good to be here.
I'm very excited to have you here because, as I said, I wasn't expecting you to be here. So
I can't remember the last time I did a podcast in person with somebody because they're all on Zoom.
Yeah. We try and do the face-to-face option if we've got it. So we do move our schedule around so that it fits people coming into the studio. But understandably, when you live on the sunny Sunshine Coast, you don't come down to Melbourne often enough for us. So.
Can I just say I think in May, we had 22 days of rain. It's not very sunny right now.
Sunny. Yeah. It's been pretty tumultuous, the weather up there, hasn't it? But you've now come down to Melbourne and the rain has hit you today as well.
It has. So. Last time I was in Melbourne, when I saw you, we had a bonus couple of days.
Yes, you did.
Cyclone, so it was great. They were two of the best days of our whole holiday.
Completely unplanned, organised at the very last minute. So what a time.
and thank you, insurance company. Exactly.
So Mel, we've had you come into the studio today because you've really spent a lot of time over the last little while building information about leadership, about performance, about self-care, and communicating it out to the wider world through social media and through books and webinars and things like that. And we really appreciate the fact that you give your time for all of those things because the information that you share is really important. It's important for our team, and some of our team have been involved in webinars that you've put on. What is the most fulfilling thing for you about being able to share that sort of stuff out to the community?
One of the things that I always share a lot of is get your skin checked because I had a melanoma 13 years ago now. I can't believe it's been that long.
Yeah.
And it was a spot on my leg that I looked at it one day. It was on top of my thigh, so every time I went to the loo, I saw it.
Yeah.
And I looked at it one day and thought, sure it didn't look like that yesterday or the day before or last week.
Yeah.
And I looked again and I thought, I'm sure it's different. But I'd just been to the doctor and had a skin check and I thought, I'll just wait. My next doctor's appointment's in a few months. I don't really want to pay another $100.
Yep.
And that night I had a dream that I died from melanoma because I didn't get it checked. So you know what I was doing first thing that morning. And so I went and had it checked, and my doctor said, I don't think it's anything, but it looks ugly, so we'll take it off and get it checked. And she rang me 2 days later and said it's a melanoma. And so I talk a lot about knowing your body, knowing what changes, getting things checked out. Don't wait for it to be too late.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the most gratifying things is when people say to me, I've booked or I've had a lump, it's been dodgy, I've gone to check it out. And then they've come back and said, and it's been something.
Yep.
And so that could have saved my life.
Yeah.
And that is the most gratifying
thing. Yeah. I can't recall the exact moment that you and I connected. I'm hoping that you can refresh my memory. It was a long time ago now though, but I think it was around that conversation that you had come on to whatever social feed that it was that had popped up and you were talking about that. And it was a really profound conversation around please just look after yourselves.
Yeah. I think we met on Twitter, it would have probably been about 14, 15.
Yeah,
maybe.
It was a long time ago.
It was in the good old days.
Yeah, back when Twitter was very, calm and quiet.
When it was Twitter.
And when you developed real friendships and real relationships. Like I've got a lot of friends in the real world who I met at that time.
Yeah.
And it could have been because I talked a lot about, I was very active on Twitter. I talked a lot about what was happening in my life and that would have definitely been something that I talked about.
Yeah.
And I wrote 2 or 3 or 4 blog posts about it and shared photos, and not gory graphic ones.
Because, of course.
Here's how it's improved. And now I have this 15-centimetre scar on my thigh and you can't even see it.
Yeah, amazing. I don't have a Twitter account anymore because I decided that I would just remove myself. Are you still active on there? Because it was really different when we met.
It was.
Yeah.
I still have an account.
Yeah.
I can't quite bring myself to cancel it, but I'm not active.
Yeah.
I look at it maybe once every week or two.
Mm-hmm.
There's a few people who I comment on every now and
Yeah.
then. No, compared to what it used to be.
Yeah, it's a little different.
So different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now you are doing, so I think we also met around food. Food was one of the things. You were sort of putting a call out saying, what local cafes and things like that. I remember those conversations too because, again, as you said, at the time, that was what social media was more about. It was about connecting with people and saying, hey, I'm going to be in Melbourne. Do you want to catch up? And, as you said, there's a lot of people that I have met, and the same with you, that we've met because of social media and we're still sort of friends after those sort of 15 years and whatever. How has social media generally changed the ability to be able to communicate with a broader audience for you?
For me, it gives me access to people I never would have had access to otherwise, both through me reaching out to people and having conversations and saying, I love what you're doing.
Yeah.
I've read your book. I loved it. I'd love to work with you, through to me sharing my thoughts and ideas and opinions and people commenting on that to me saying exactly the same thing. I love what you do. I love your books. Can we work together?
Yeah.
And so it's made doing business, I don't know whether it's made doing business easier. It certainly made me lazier at doing business development because when I started my business, like you, nearly 20 years ago, there was no social media. There was no the internet was, it was there, but it wasn't anywhere the way it is today. And so for me to do BD, I had to have coffees with people and I had to make phone calls and I had to send emails and I had to rely on other people to go to a big effort to introduce me. And today I can just jump on LinkedIn and go, I'd like to work with somebody at this company who has the relevant role. Who do I need to reach out to?
Yeah.
It's so different.
Yeah.
It's so different. And I don't know whether it's easier or harder. And I feel like it's easier in one way because you have greater access. But business is still about relationships.
Yeah.
And if you don't make an effort to build that relationship, and that does mean picking up the phone sometimes and making a call and having coffees with people and getting to know each other in an offline way, if you really want to have a good business relationship with someone. So that hasn't changed.
Yeah, I was going to say that's my opinion is that hasn't changed and you still need to do that part of it. It can't just all be online.
No, it can't. It can't.
And even, I was going to
say, online can facilitate an introduction.
It can, absolutely.
But it can't do the hard yards.
No.
Yeah.
And I find too that tactile face-to-face in person, you get more emotion and more, I suppose, the body language comes through more.
Absolutely.
And therefore helps with the relationship and building that relationship and trust.
Absolutely. And, I'm sure I've had meetings with people, and I'm sure you have as well, where if it was a meeting online or if it was only a phone call, we would have worked together. But because we've met in person, their body language that I've observed or things about them that I've observed, whether it's being rude to the person that brought you the coffee in the cafe or whether it's been like not holding a door for somebody behind you and slamming it in their face, that has made me think you don't have that level of care or your values are different, and I actually don't think that we would be a good fit. And you don't get that when you're on a Zoom call or on a phone call. You need to be observing people as well as asking questions and listening.
So now what your focus is on leadership and communication and self-care and things like that. That's not where Mel started though, is it? In her life. So tell us a little bit about the journey. It's Shane's favourite word when we talk about these things, but it always is the journey. Tell us a bit about where it all started and how you ended up where you are now.
So my first real job after uni that wasn't, exchanging cash behind a bar or behind a cash register was working for a conference management company, and it was a small business with 3 to 4 of us at any given time, and we ran association conferences. And so I did that for a few years in Sydney, and then I was headhunted by a global marketing agency to run all of the events for Microsoft. They just won the contract for that. I did that for just over a year before I completely crashed and burned. And then I moved to Brisbane and worked as the marketing manager for the Brisbane Festival. and then in government for a few years. And so 19 years ago, in 2006, I thought I've had enough of working for other people. I really wanted to work part-time. And the head of HR in my government department said to his colleague, not knowing his colleague was a good mate of mine, "I don't understand why Mel wants to work part-time when she doesn't have children or a husband, as far as I'm aware." And so, no, access denied. And so I resigned and started consulting. And my early days of consulting, I wrote a lot of annual reports and a lot of governance reporting. And then I did a lot more, some strategy work and some project work. And it's probably been about 10 years maybe that I've been focusing a lot more on leadership and self-awareness and self-care. I did a master's in public health in that time and didn't ever really want to work in public health, but wanted to work in a way that shared the learnings of public health, and public health is health from a community. And I look at organisations and businesses and industries as communities, and if you don't provide the right environment and the right support to your people, you will never get the best out of them, no matter how much you want to, because they don't feel like they are in a safe place, a good place, a supported place.
Yeah. I think, when we do this podcast, it's almost always, it's about people sharing where they've come from and what motivated them to do things. But I think it's always really important because some of our listeners are younger people and haven't found their place in the world yet. It's really important for people to understand that where you start in university or life or whatever the job might have been is not where you need to end up. It's not like a linear, I start here and I just keep going along in one big long straight line until I've reached the pinnacle of whatever that first degree was or whatever. And that there's things that you
totally
can do.
Agree.
Yeah.
My first degree was in tourism management. Actually, no, my first degree was in economics.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I did 2.5 years and then went, no, I've had enough.
Yeah.
Dropped out.
Yeah.
You can just imagine my family's pleasure at that decision. But by the time I told them, I'd already withdrawn and I'd booked a non-refundable, returnable everything ticket to Europe. And I was halfway on the plane.
Yeah.
And I went and did that degree at ANU, and back then you had 10 years to complete. Yeah. And at year 9, my father said to me, "You still have a year to complete it." Oh, Dad, that ship has sailed.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah. And I think also important to understand that you don't have to listen to what your parents say.
Oh, no, not at all. I really wish that I had left that degree earlier.
Yeah.
I mean, I had a lot of really positive life experiences that I'm glad I had in that 2.5 years, but I knew. I went into my first class, first year economics, was an annual subject. That should have been a big red flag to begin with.
Yeah.
And the lecturer said there were 650 kids in the room at ANU, and the lecturer said, "Look right, look left. 2 of the 3 of you won't graduate this degree in 3 years." And I thought, okay, that's an interesting comment to make.
Yeah.
One of the first things out of your mouth. And then he said, this whole degree and the theory of economics is based on 3 or 4 or 5 assumptions, which in reality never happen. No. And my pragmatic brain just about imploded on itself then. And that was when I should have walked out, but I didn't know that was something you could do.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I stayed.
Yeah, and I think, again, from our perspective, being really clear with our kids as well as, other people's young people in our lives that sometimes, your gut instinct is okay to follow. And
absolutely.
It's really important to understand that where you start is not where you're going to finish by any stretch. And did you think when you were sitting in that first lecture that you would end up being, a published author with all of, the experience?
Of course not.
I hated English.
Exactly.
Hated English.
Yeah.
Always loved reading.
Yeah.
No, never even began to think about that.
Yeah.
But I look at what I do now, and podcasting wasn't a thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Writing was. Social media wasn't. No. AI wasn't.
Yeah.
There's so much that has changed. And I always thought that I wanted to work for myself.
Yeah.
Because my father was a consultant, and I just watched him go from being an employee to being a consultant, and how much happier he seemed and how much more freedom and flexibility he gave himself. And I knew that was something I always wanted, but he didn't become a consultant and work for himself until he was 55. And so I just always assumed that by the time I did that, I'd be at least in my 40s, not in my early 30s. So that was a big, but the timing was right for me to do it, to jump when I did. And I'm really grateful that I made that decision then. And my husband was fully supportive as well, which I look back now and think we'd barely been together. I think we'd been together for maybe 2 years. We had the biggest mortgage. Like when we signed our mortgage papers, I threw up before we signed them. And the bank guy was like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, no." Just and so there was a massive risk. Yeah. But, he backed me totally. And so I thought, wow, if he can, I need to back myself.
Yeah. Now you consult on leadership and in varying forms. It's not just leadership for a particular industry, because I think that's really important as well, is that you can be a consultant that isn't specialising in an industry. What's your favourite part of that part of consulting around leadership and the clients that you get to meet as a result?
So a lot of the work I do today is around sustainable success and how do you achieve sustainable success without burning out, whether you're an individual, whether you're a part of a team, or whether you're an organisation who has big goals. And my favourite part is going into an organisation and helping whoever they put in front of me to see that there's another way, that you don't need to have an operational plan that is going to kill you all, that you don't need to consistently be working 12 to 14-hour days, that you should be having annual leave, that you should be developing an organisational culture that values rest and recovery so that you can take breaks throughout the day. And I'm not saying, back to the good old days of having a smoko every 90 minutes and being outside for 20 minutes at a time, but valuing the understanding that our brains were not wired to be staring at a screen for 8 hours a day. Our bodies were not designed to sit still for more than half an hour to 45 minutes. And so what is it that you do? How do you design an environment where your people are given permission, for want of a better way of saying it, to work in a way that allows them to perform at their best consistently?
I'm going to read something out here because I'm not going to get the actual words in the right order. So I'm going to read it out because I want you to talk about it, because Chelsea, one of our team, who everyone who listens to the podcast knows, spent some time on a session with you a couple of weeks back. And I need you to explain it for me. The concept of the feather, the brick and the truck.
I always get the order of that wrong as well.
That's why I knew I was going to go
someone
wrong.
About the feather, the truck and the brick, and I'm like, that doesn't quite seem right. So the feather, the brick and the truck, we get warning signs when things aren't right. And so, and this is not my idea. I can't remember where I first read it or heard it, but it was a long time ago. And so if it was your idea, thank you. But we all get these warning signs, and our level of self-awareness determines how much we pay attention to them. And it's not only our self-awareness, but it's how busy we are and how much we're prepared to prioritise ourselves first. And so the feathers are little things they're little signs that start to indicate some behaviour changes or some things that aren't quite going right in your body or your mind. And so in the lead up to my burnout, when I was in my late 20s, feathers for me were things like I was consistently working 70-hour weeks. I was drinking way more alcohol than one body should have put into it. I was drinking a lot more coffee. I wasn't exercising as much. I was snappy. And I was feeling really anxious, and I'm not normally an anxious person. So they were some of the feathers. The bricks were things like I was getting chest pains all the time. I was not sleeping very well at all. I went to the doctor. This was the biggest brick, and I didn't have a truck. So a truck is something that could be quite catastrophic, and that really wipes you. And in hindsight, the burnout overall was my truck, because it took me 2 years to recover from that. But I went to see my doctor about something, and he said to me, "How are you?" And I cried for 30 minutes until I was hyperventilating. And he said, I'm guessing you're not that great.
Yeah.
So he took my blood pressure and he said, I don't know how you're walking around because it's so high. And then he said to me, if you don't make some major changes, you'll have a stroke before you turn 30.
Wow.
And so that was kind of anticipating the truck.
Yep.
So I made some major life changes, took a little bit of time and ended up resigning from that job, leaving Sydney, moving to Brisbane, doing a bunch of other things. But I hadn't listened. And so he said to me, how did you let it get to this point? And I said, I just got caught up in life.
Yep.
And, you know, Gen X girl, brought up to serve others, didn't know I could say no. Tried to say no a few times to my boss and say, I'm feeling really overwhelmed, I'm feeling really overworked. We need some more people to do this work. And he just said, you just have to suck it up.
Yep.
And so I really want people to start listening to the feathers. What are your feathers?
Yeah. Yeah.
And, you know, it's a behaviour change or a pattern change that happens more than once.
Yeah.
You know, James Clear, when you're creating habits, James Clear says in the path to create a good habit, you can skip something once, but if you skip it twice, that's your danger zone because that means you'd be more likely to skip it a third and a fourth or fifth time.
Yeah. 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 As you said, being a Gen X girl and you're, you know, people pleaser and that sort of stuff is just typical of
and the
how
oldest
we're brought
daughter.
up. Yeah, okay. So because society is very different now, not to say that there's any less burnout because we still see a lot of that and we still see a lot of particularly young women putting pressure on themselves for all sorts of reasons. Social media is one of those really big things where people try and keep up with whatever's going on. And, I mean, there was a whole TV show around keeping up with people. How do you, when you talk to people and when you present and when you're writing, how do you get those things across to them in a way that they understand now? Because obviously we know a little bit about our generation, but that's because we've had 30 years to try and work out, you know, how that all works. Because it's changed so much, how do you put your mind in their place?
I feel like younger generations, younger women in particular, have a lot more self-awareness than I had at that age.
Yeah.
I look at my niece and her friends and the daughters of quite a few of my friends who are now late teens, 20s, 30s in some cases, and there's a lot less rubbish that they're prepared to put up with.
Yeah.
Because, and I don't know where that confidence comes from, whether they've just observed the older women in their lives be beaten up mentally by being the good girl and deciding that they don't want that. I don't know. But I always, like, I love to share stories and I love to hear stories. And so every time I do a masterclass or a workshop or any kind of presentation, I always make it really clear that I want to hear your stories because I'm very happy to share mine and answer any questions about mine, but we learn more together from each other. And so my experience won't be your experience and that's okay.
Yeah.
So if I get a question like that, then I'll just throw it to the room and go, right, what's your experience with that?
Yeah. Let's talk about COVID for a minute. Because obviously people like us and the way we work was really impacted by that because you've just talked about, you know, personal connection and face-to-face contact and all of that sort of stuff. And, you know, you're living in a place where, you know, you've got all this sunshine around you normally, maybe not recently. How do you think that time of our lives has impacted on how people self-care and things like that these days?
I know for me, I woke up in one morning in February 2020, looked at my calendar and was on track to be away for 120 nights in 2020. And I remember looking at it thinking, how the hell am I going to survive this year?
Yeah.
How is that going to work? How will I survive? How will my health survive? How will my relationships survive? And I felt quite overwhelmed. And then COVID happened. And then within a period of
threw something to you.
Within about 48 hours, my whole diary just cleared out.
Yeah.
Every single piece of work I had on cancelled.
Yeah.
And then I thought, how are we going to pay the mortgage? And but then also we had a holiday. So I lived in Queensland, so we had border closures and very different things that happened. Not that I need to tell you in Melbourne anything about that. But as soon as we could travel more than 5 kilometres from our home, we planned a holiday and we just went somewhere else in Queensland. We went to a beach and I said to my husband on the first day, we need to move. I need to walk on the beach every day. I miss being at the beach. And so we had a 2-week holiday at 2 different beaches, walked on the beach a lot. And then we went back to the Sunshine Coast about 3 weeks after we bought the first house we looked at, the day we looked at it. And that was a realisation for me personally that we had this golden opportunity to make a change and that the world was never going to go back to the way it was. And even if it did, I didn't want my world to go back to that. And I said to him, I don't want to travel that way again. So now I very rarely travel for work. I do 1 trip a month at the absolute most. 10 a year is my upper limit. But I'm also very aware I'm in a position where I can afford to do that. And so as a consequence, I'm very aware of my health and I'm in my 50s now, so I feel like I need to be a lot more aware of it. But I also look at my clients and my friends and I don't know anybody that really wants to go back to how their lives were. And I feel like it's an opportunity to, if not reinvent yourself, then at least make changes in the small parts of your world that you really want to be doing things differently. And there's so much opportunity to do that.
And with that, with those small changes, sometimes people are just caught in that rut race or whatever else. How did you flick that switch or get people to change that perspective and say, look, I do need to look after myself or whatever the case may be?
I think people had a lot of opportunity, particularly during lockdowns, to do more exercise and to cook healthier meals and to not rely on takeaway and to learn new skills and habits because we were at home all the time and so we had to do something rather than just watching Netflix at all times. And so people saw the better side of what life could be. So reminding people of that and how they felt and thinking about what's one thing that you can do to feel better. And so I remember one of my friends who was in Melbourne, I said to her one day, I feel like you're happier at the moment than you have been. And she said, I am. And I said, what are you doing? What have you done to make that change? Because the last time I spoke to you, it was all doom and gloom. You couldn't leave your house and what have you done? And she said, I've just made a decision to put more joy into my life. And I went, how are you doing that? And she said, every night before I go to bed, I think about something that I'm going to do tomorrow that I can look forward to. And it will be something that brings me joy. And it might be getting up a little bit earlier and having the house to myself before the family wakes up, or it might be reading more of a book that I'm really enjoying, or it might be a phone call with a friend. But she said, I go to bed thinking about something I'm looking forward to, and that makes everything feel a little bit more positive and joyous and better. And I thought, why don't we all do that? That's a really easy thing to do, isn't it? Pick the one thing that you're doing tomorrow rather than looking back because, I look at people that do gratitude journals and that's all looking back. But look forward. Look forward instead. And so when you look forward, that's a momentum that you can create about looking forward to something. And we know from a neuroscience perspective, when you look forward for things, you get a lot more positive endorphins. And there's so many health benefits from that.
Look, I can relate to that because we've been through it's our busiest time in the business, and I've booked a holiday for next Friday. And tell you what, the joy and the expectation and the anticipation of that has given me extra energy and
absolutely.
Thank you for rubbing that into this conversation, as I have not booked the same holiday. So,
but I think that's why they say as well when you come back from a holiday, in your first week back, you should be booking your next holiday, or if you don't book it, you should at least be putting some time in your calendar. And that's something else. So many people I work with haven't got a holiday planned, and I'm like, why not? And they say, I can't afford it. And I'm like, well, you can have a holiday that doesn't cost you money. You don't need to go away to have a break. You can there's heaps of things you can do. And so, one of the things I always say to either leaders or to their team members, if you don't have a holiday booked for the next 12 months, then book one in the next week. Get that time in a calendar and you can figure out the details later, but get that time off. And for the leaders in the organisation, I'm like, you need to be looking at your staff leave loading and have a look and see if you've got team members that haven't had a break.
Yeah.
They need that.
Yeah, exactly.
And, you know, Sean, my husband, he works at Coles. We're having lots of holidays at the moment because he's working a lot more hours than he's contracted to. And so he's accruing 6 to 8 weeks of annual leave a year.
Wow.
And I'm a big believer in using it all.
Yeah, absolutely.
We had a holiday for 2 weeks earlier in the year. We came to Melbourne. We went to Adelaide. It was great. He'd been back in the office for about 2 weeks when he said, I'd like to talk about my next holiday. We want to go. We're going overseas. We're going to Japan and Korea in September, October. And his boss said to him, another holiday? And he's like, yes, another holiday. I still have 4 weeks of leave and he's now got many more.
Yeah, yeah.
And she said, I haven't had a holiday in 3 years.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, love.
Yeah.
You need to.
Yeah, yeah.
You really need to.
I mean, that's a choice, isn't it? You don't not have a holiday for 3 years because you,
yes,
you know.
It is a choice.
Yeah.
She's also on the fast track of leadership in the organisation. And so it's really easy to get caught in that rut of I'm indispensable, I can't go, I'll be missed, I'll miss an opportunity.
Yeah.
And I certainly used to have that mentality when I was in the corporate world and wanted to fast escalate my career.
Yeah.
And so it's on leaders and organisations to both model the holiday behaviour and to encourage people to have it and not to give them the tap on the shoulder when they've got 8 weeks accrued and your accounting team are going, hang on, we've got a liability here. You need to be doing it well before it gets to that.
Yeah.
Because you don't want people to feel forced to take a break. No. You want them to look forward to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's where that intervention, if someone for 3 years, you don't want to necessarily intervene and say you must do it because then it's not there.
Exactly. Sean came home the other day and he said, as soon as I said I want another holiday, they all looked at when they could have a holiday this year.
Yeah.
And so they've all got leave booked in now, or everyone in his team. And I just went, yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Excellent.
Yeah. Booking holidays is super important. Even though I don't have a holiday booked, I'm very keen to book a holiday. And we do have this philosophy around booking a holiday from a holiday because I think it's exciting to be able to have that. And as you said, looking forward to something, but it doesn't always have to be, and I just want to come back to this for a minute, it doesn't have to be about going somewhere or, having some sort of big hullabaloo planned, because you can just have a holiday and it can just be, I'm actually just going to stay at home and read all these books or I'm just going to go for coffee with my friends when I wouldn't normally get to do that.
Absolutely. As soon as I stopped working in hospitality and retail and could have holidays when, real people have holidays, I never worked that Easter week again. And so from all of my years of being an employee, I always took 10 days at Easter. And I never went anywhere because I hated travelling at that time when everybody else was. Exactly. But I just stayed at home and I'd do a few jobs around the house and I'd go to the movies and I'd catch up with friends and I would read. And I read at least 10 books in all of those breaks. And it was fantastic. And, I mean, now I work for myself. I feel like if I'm at home, I need to be working. And so it's a bit of I need to get out of that. I mean, God, it's been nearly 20 years. I'm probably going to get out of that. But I have a lot more freedom and flexibility to go away now. So like this trip, I'm here for a work thing, but I've come for an extra few days and I'm seeing friends. And yes, I'm doing a bit of work, but I'm not working in the same way that I would be if I was at home.
When you do your workshops and your presentations, you're obviously sitting in spaces with people who have leadership values and ideals anyway. When you must come across some people who are just like, oh, Mel, that's ridiculous. People shouldn't be booking holidays and, that sort of stuff. How do you manage those conversations?
I did have a piece of feedback from a workshop that I did a couple of years ago where one of the participants said, I can't believe you got somebody who doesn't have children to come and talk to us about boundaries. And I just thought, that's really interesting because the person who said that had 4 kids and was a single mother and did everything for them, even though she had teenagers. And when I said to her, do you think your teenagers could maybe, make their own lunch? She just shut me down. And I thought, okay, you've got a few other things you need to be resolving here. So And I think that there's – what was the question?
Just about around when you get people who are, completely against what you're talking about in terms of, boundaries or values and connectedness and things. How do you manage those conversations?
Oh, you're never going to please everyone.
Yeah.
And if they don't want to be there, then they don't need to be there. But there's sometimes I work with people who get sent to the things that I do, or if I'm speaking at a conference or an event and they are a part of it, then they can leave. Yeah. If they don't think there's going to be value, then I'm not going to hold them there. Yeah. Yeah. I did spoke at a retreat a few weeks ago and on boundaries, the invisible load and rest. And it was for a group of women, and most of the women in the room would have been in their 40s and 50s. Yep. And there were a couple of women who came up to me either before or after and said, I won't be at your session, or I wasn't at your session because I feel like I have this all under control. Yep. I'm like, that is fantastic. Go and have a massage then. Yeah, if you feel like you have it all under control. We were at Noosa. I'm like, go for a walk on the beach, go for a swim. If you don't feel that I'm going to provide you with value, then please do not be there, because I would hate you to feel that I was preaching, and I don't want to preach to the converted. I want to preach. I don't want to preach at all, but I want to be sharing my ideas with people who are looking for new ways of doing things. Yeah, yeah. You've talked about walking along the beach. I see lots of photos on your social media of your beach activities, which I love. I've got another person who I'm connected with who also does lots of beach and swims and stuff. I love the fact that you get out and have a swim. I know that the water is much warmer up north, but I love the fact that you swim. This other friend of mine is swimming in the bay in the middle of winter, so she's crazy. I think that she's much crazier. What else do you do personally that keeps you grounded, connected to your community? What are your self-care tips? So my probably main two would be reading for pleasure, which I do every day. I read for at least probably half an hour to an hour and a half a day. It's my favourite thing to do. I make sure I go to bed really early. I'm in bed by 9 o'clock most nights with a book, and I read for at least half an hour. I don't watch a lot of TV because I'd rather read a book. So that's one thing. And the other thing is I spend time at the beach and outside. Yeah. And I love food. Yeah. So I cook. I love to cook. I love to go to farmers markets. I love grocery shopping. Yeah. Yeah. And we've often shared grocery shopping photos and things when we're overseas. Mel will go to a Japanese convenience store and be posting photos of the things, and they're often points of connection. I want to thank you for coming in today. We will share all of the details about what Mel does outside of this podcast. We'll put links to all of the various things, and I just wanted to say thank you for coming down to Melbourne. I wasn't expecting. I know that you're not here just to do this podcast, but I'm so glad that you're actually in the studio with us because like you have said, being face-to-face in these sorts of situations is so different to doing an online podcast where we do them, but this is our favourite way to do things is face-to-face. Thank you so much for coming today, and thank you for sharing, and thank you for allowing our team to have access to you through your workshops as well. I think online workshops is an awesome thing to do. We do some things face-to-face, but it's really cool that you do that sort of stuff too and get to a broader audience. So thanks for coming in today, Mel. Oh, thanks so much for inviting me. It's been great to talk to you both. Yeah, loved it. Thank you. Thank you for joining us today on Q&A with S&A. Subscribe wherever you get your podcast to hear us chat to other incredible people like Mel.